This game had 0 mistakes, 0 blunders, no dubious moves, and was played at 96% accuracy. I mean, these guys are robots. So this is round 1 of the 2023 FIDE World Championship between Nepo and Liren. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to round 1 of the World Championship March 2023 that is taking place in Astana, Kazakhstan, beginning from today up to May 1, 2023. So this World Championship will consist of 14 games, and that means a score of 7.5 will determine the 2023 World Chess Champion, replacing Magnus Carlsen. I mean, as you already know, in July 2022, the current World Champion GM Magnus Carlsen decided not to defend his title, and that's why he was replaced with Liren being the closest contender. So the time control for each game is 120 minutes for the first 40 moves, followed by 60 minutes for the next 20 moves, and then 15 minutes for the rest of the game, with an increment of 30 seconds per move starting from move 61. In case of a tie, the champion would be determined in a rapid chess playoff. So in this series, I will try my level best to make these recaps become interesting by featuring in some possible traps and tricks that exist in most of the lines that we are going to see from these matches, and I'm going to be explaining these games in the most easiest way that even a baby can understand, which is why you have all the reasons to stay tuned and join me every time I do these recaps just for you guys. So be sure to hit the like button. Let's go. So Nepo had white pieces. The game started as a Ruy Lopez e4, e5, knight f3, attacking the e5 pawn, knight c6, defending it. And instead of playing bishop c4, which every beginner knows, hey, the Ruy Lopez, also called the Spanish opening, is where white plays bishop b5 right here. So if I was to use a baby language, I would say white wants to play bishop b3 in this position just to avoid pawn to d5 in some lines. But in order to play bishop b3 in this position, they first of all go bishop b5, and here everybody was expecting Liren to play knight to f6, which is the Berlin defense, but he still played pawn to s6, the main line. Now for beginners, once again, bishop takes c6 is not the idea. You may think you are winning the e5 pawn for free, but black can play queen e7 or simply queen d4, which wins back the pawn and at the same time attacks your knight. So bishop takes on c6 is not what strong players play here. They go bishop f4. Remember, the idea is to put the light squared bishop on b3. Now in tomorrow's video about the Ruy Lopez, I'm going to tell you why grandmasters don't play pawn to b5 right in this position. Anyways, knight to f6 is what Liren played, attacking the pawn on e4, and Nepo chose to gambit that pawn. This is called the Rio Gambit, or maybe not yet, but white is inviting black to enter into the Rio Gambit, accepted after something like knight takes e4, which was not played in the game, by the way. I'm just showing you the possibilities that could have happened. Let me show you a beautiful trap in this line before we continue. There's a line where white plays rook e1, attacking the knight, and after pawn to d5, defending the knight, which is somewhat a mistake. White can play pawn to d4 in this position. An interesting line, you guys. The idea is that if e takes d4, now white can take back on d4 with a knight, and if pawn to b5 now, white can then take the innocent knight on c6, attacking the queen, and after queen f6, now there's pawn to f3. Even if white takes back the knight, the bishop can safely retreat on b3 and put more pressure on the d5 pawn plus the knight on d4, and position is like plus 3.7 in favor of white. Nepo would have won this game so easily. Instead of taking on d4, they immediately play pawn to b5, attacking the light squared bishop, and after bishop b3, now this becomes a problem because white can play a mind-blowing move in this position, knight c3. Imagine, you guys, sacrificing a whole knight, because if black takes, now position is like plus 4.8 in favor of white. Black is losing because of bishop takes d5, double attacking black's two knights. And if bishop b7, defending one knight, white can simply take on e4, and after queen takes, you don't even take back the queen immediately because you have an in-between move, bishop takes c6. That's double check. And after king d8, only move, then you take the queen with tempo. That's another check. And I'm sure you can see how bad black's position is by now. So this is just another possibility to keep in mind, you guys. And so after Nepo played bishop f4 and knight f6 by Ding, castle short, gambiting a pawn. Liren decided not to take the free pawn on e4, yeah, which was going to open up the position, but instead chose to play bishop e7. This is called the Ruy Lopez closed variation, you guys, where you just don't care about taking your opponent's free pawns. Anyways, this is when Nepo played bishop takes. Rook e1 in this position is what most grandmasters play, just defending the e4 pawn and continuing with life. But Nepo decided to take on c6 right away. White is okay to give up his bishop pair for rapid development and just to create an imbalance in the position. And now this is called the delayed exchange, you guys, where black takes on c6 with his d pawn. And just like I said earlier on, the idea is not to take on e5 before defending the pawn on e4 first, which is why Nepo played rook e1. And now Nepo is at liberty of taking the pawn on e5 for free since the e4 pawn now is defended. Black can play bishop d6, queen d6 here, or even bishop g4. Almost everything is playable, but Liren chose to play knight d7. I don't really understand the logic here, but I guess the whole idea is to free up the king side, maybe after castle short, knight b6 and pawn to f5, opening up the center. So Nepo quickly played pawn to d4, and there's not any better move here apart from pawn takes and queen takes. Now Nepo is attacking the g7 pawn, which is why Liren castled short to defend that pawn. So beginners, learn from these guys. Still in the opening stage, White should focus on developing his minor pieces rather than attacking. So that's what you want to do in the opening stage, which is why Nepo played bishop f4. Why not bishop d2 or bishop e3? The answer is you want to be developing your pieces on their most active squares where they have full potential. Anyways, knight c5 was played. You don't always have to exchange queens if you don't have a good reason. Bishop g4, there is no trap here, you guys. Ding just developed his light squared bishop on the most active square as well. Going back, knight e6 is the most common move in this position, but bishop g4 is the first novelty. And now we have a brand new game that has never been played before. According to the Lichess Masters Database, knight d4 is what Nepo played. Again, he would have played any move here, maybe knight c3, knight d2, but out of all, he chose to play knight d4. Why? Nepo understands that a knight which is on the center of the board is more powerful than a knight which is at the edge of the board. Even though Nepo's knight is not attacking anything, it is covering many squares, hence taking away most of the important squares from black. Anyways, queen d7, knight c3 was played. Now just a second. Beginners, I want you to see the piece coordination that I always talk about in my videos, you guys. When you look at Liren's position, every piece is defending every piece. He has no any weaknesses. This bishop is defending the knight, the queen is defending the bishop, the c7 pawn is defended by the queen, the b7 pawn is defended by the knight, the rooks are eyeing each other. This is how you play in the opening, developing all your minor pieces towards the center of the board. Forget about mating your opponent very fast. It doesn't happen in serious games. So rook a d8, putting more pressure on the knight. Now Nepo can't play rook a d1 because there's a bishop on g4 covering the d1 square. So Nepo has to play pawn to h3, maybe counter-attacking the bishop, but Nepo didn't want to exchange the queens, which is why he played knight f5. You see, again controlling more squares with his knight. And here there's a funny line, you guys. If bishop takes f5, Nepo was thinking of taking back the bishop and indirectly attacking the dark squared bishop. And in case black took on f5, this was going to be a mistake because of queen takes e7, and after queen takes f4, black was going to lose a free knight, and this was going to be easily winning for Nepo, which is why every move that these guys play at this level is a tactical move. Anyways, after knight f5, even though bishop takes f5 was arguably the best move, as long as black doesn't take the f5 pawn, Liren chose not to take the knight and instead played knight e6, counter-attacking the dark squared bishop. But hey, note that Nepo had given up his bishop pair in the opening stage, and so he saw an opportunity to do the same to black, and that's check, so black has to take. And after bishop g3, saving the only remaining bishop, Ding decided to play bishop h5 just to avoid any pawn to f3 or h3 attack. So bishop h5 is what he played, but anyways, pawn to f3 still came. Now Nepo wants to play rook a d1, I guess. and Ding played pawn to f6. This is more like a prophylactic move which also paves way for the light squared bishop. But anyways, pawn to h3 was played by Nepo, another prophylactic move. What I mean is this is more like a waiting move, you guys, which is also aimed at improving the position slowly, just waiting to see what your opponent is up to. Stockfish thinks Ding Liren should create a battery along the d file, but Ding Liren played pawn to h6. Now both parties are just playing waiting moves which are also aimed at improving their positions. King h2 was played, then bishop f7, another reason for pawn to f6 earlier on. Then rook a d1 was finally played. The aim was to simplify the game after rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and maybe rook d8, rook takes d8, then queen takes d8. This was going to be a boring match, you guys. But as you already know, strong players don't just take pieces anyhow. Ding played another prophylactic move, pawn to b6, improving the position. He's just making sure that he doesn't have any weaknesses on the queen side, as you can see. Then pawn to a3 by Nepo, another prophylactic move aimed at improving the position, also stopping the possible queen b4 and maybe preparing for pawn to b4 next, which is why Ding played pawn to a5. You can see how these guys are carefully executing and unleashing these prophylactic moves to improve their positions. No one is in a hurry to win here, like what most beginners do. So knight e2 was played, maybe planning to go to f4, and rook takes d1 finally. Rook takes d1 and rook d8. If you take black's rook, you will allow black to take over the d file, which is why Nepo played rook d3, by the way. So black doesn't have to take because he's going to help white, maybe to take back with a pawn and have two pawns on the center. Anyways, c5, I guess Ding wanted to play pawn to c6 so that he doesn't hang the c7 pawn, which is under attack by white's dark squared bishop on g3. So that's the idea of pawn to c5. Queen d2 was played, and then pawn to c6. So now Ding doesn't have to worry about losing a free pawn on c7. Then here Nepo gained an initiative. Rook takes d8, which was very tactical, you guys. This is where the game would have ended if Nepo was playing someone like me. For example, if I took on d8, Nepo can now take on d8 with check, and after knight takes, there is this bishop c7 move, which will end up winning the free pawn on b6. In classical tournaments, you guys, it's only one pawn that matters the most. Once you capture one free pawn, then you have higher chances of winning the endgame. And that's what Nepo was planning to do in this position, but Ding Liren has got different eyeballs, which is why he saw knight takes d8, a better move, and after queen f4, intending to go queen b8 and attack the pawn on b6, Ding Liren prevented that, but Nepo still goes queen b8 to attack nothing. King h7, unpinning the knight, bishop d6. That was a great initiative, you guys. Tried to win a free pawn here, but still that wasn't going to work. Let's say after bishop takes c5. This looks scary for Ding, but he was just going to have some counterplay after queen d2 and after knight d4. Knight e6, a forcing move. Knight takes, bishop takes. Nepo was not going to defend any of his back pawns. Let's say queen d6. You don't have to exchange queens if you can win other things here. So this was just going to be an equal game. Black just took back his pawn. So after bishop d6, bishop takes c5 was not a big threat for Ding Liren, and that's why Nepo played something else. Knight g3 in this position. Then knight e6 was played. Pawn to f4, h5. Going for the kingside attack, pawn to c3, now stopping the possible knight d4, pawn to c4, pawn to h4. I mean, this game was a dead draw from here, you guys. There was no way for any of the parties to reach any of the kings, e.g. queen d7, queen b8, queen d8. And now both parties agreed to exchange queens. And after knight d4, I mean, this was just a dead draw. There was nothing anyone was playing for in this position. By the way, note how Ding Liren is not even taking the bishop on d6 because that was only going to help white to create a passed pawn. Another lesson for beginners and intermediate level players: don't just take any pieces that you see on the board. Bishop c7, knight c5, and now Ding decides to sacrifice his a pawn because he knows that there is no way white can match his a pawn forward. Position is still equal. King f7, bishop b4, knight d3, wanting to win back the pawn, pawn to e6 check. Now Nepo tried one more trick, but Ding Liren played bishop d7 attacking the knight, and after knight d4, Ding took on b2, then king f3, knight d3, pawn to g3, knight c1, and this is where both players agreed to a draw. There's just no way any of the players can make progress from here. In this game there were no any mistakes, no blunders whatsoever, and this is how you guys are supposed to be playing your chess. So tomorrow on 10th April 2023 it will be round 2, and I hope to come up with some exciting content, yes, provided that we are going to see something different from both players other than the Ruy Lopez. Anyways, if at all you enjoyed my recap, please let me know in the comment section, and hope to see you soon in my next video. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if at all you haven't already, because that's how you encourage me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. Until next time, bye bye.